Hello, welcome back to our lecture. So for this topic, we'll be talking about loops. So why are loops so very important? So in programming, there are a lot of repetitive code. So loops allows you to iterate through a sequence of code. So to demonstrate this, we will be using the for loop first, then the while loop. In Python, these are the two common looping. So for loop and while loop. So for loop, first we defined a sequence. Let's define it inside a variable. So sequence is equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you remember from previous lectures, this is a list. Okay, so let us do a for loop on this sequence. So for Python loops, especially the for loop, you define using this syntax. So for, let's say, num in sequence, then you follow the first line with a colon. Okay. Then, for example, we will print the number inside the sequence. So let's say print num. So the num here is, so let me have a comment here. So the num here is a temporary variable only. So you can name this num whatever you like, but in programming, you name variables with with a with their meaning. Meaning, don't just define this as x. So you define variable with meaningful names. So that is a best practice. And again, don't forget the tab. Okay. So if you come from the other programming language background, so the for loop looks like this. So for example, for I is equivalent to 1, you have the initial value. And for example, I is less than or equal to 5, you have your condition. Then you have your increment. So I know you're familiar with the syntax. Okay, but in Python, it looks like this one. So let's demonstrate that the output. Okay, so print num. So we basically execute these full blocks of code. So this is the example of for loop. So let me explain the what is happening in this block of code. So for num is just a temporary variable. So it looks through the sequence. If you look at the variable of our sequence, it is a list. So it is just iterating with this contents. So yeah, as you can see, the printout, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is just the content of the sequence. Okay, so again, you can rename this one whatever you like. But again, variable must be meaningful. You can rename this. For example, you want item. Okay, doesn't matter. The important thing here is the after the in syntax, it will look through a sequence. So primarily list. So again, let's execute this one. So the result will still be the same. Okay, so before we move on the while loop, so I think I made a mistake on the syntax for other programming language for loop. It should be this one. So for example, I is equivalent to 1. Earlier, I noticed that I put a comma instead of a semicolon. Okay, so the correct syntax for other programming language is this one. So instead of a comma, it's a colon. Okay, I'm just correcting my mistake previously because I have put a comma, not a semicolon. But anyway, we will not study this one. These are for other programming languages. Okay, so again, it doesn't have to be the variable definition here. So for example, I will just execute this one without enter, so that I can create another empty cell. Okay. So for example, you define four items in sequence, so the same code. Okay, and you have to print, let's say, yes. Okay, this will execute 5 times. So why? Because there are 5 items inside the sequence list. Okay, it doesn't have to be this always a variable. If you want to execute it 5 times, uh, you can do other code, not just primarily to display this item. So these are very rare case that you would do that, but it's also applicable in terms of for loop. Let's proceed to while loop. So while loop is another kind of loop in Python, but it has a different structure. So for example, the while loop will execute, the loop will run while the condition is true. So this I is the syntax for the while. So for example, while I is less than 5. So instead of a curly bracket, again in Python, you end it with a colon. For example, a print, let's do a print formatting, just to review your previous topic, is per bracket, a curly brackets, I mean, then format, for example, I. So if you will notice this, I will not execute this code. Why? So this will, you look at this code, the while loop runs while the condition is true. This will be an infinite loop. That's why I will not execute this. So while I is less than 5, since we don't define I here, it is considered as 0. So it means while 0 is less than 5, it's always true. So this one will execute forever. Yes, there's a forever in Python, especially in while loop. So in case that happens, that you execute an infinite loop, so you have to restart the kernel to clear the infinite loop. Okay, but I will not execute this. So what is lacking here is the increment, so that this condition will be satisfied. So for example, I will define here I is equivalent to 1. Okay, then the next line will be the increment. So we can say that I is equivalent to I plus 1. So when we execute this, it will not be an infinite loop. So for example, while 1 is less than 5, is it true? Yes, it is true. Then 1 plus 1 is equivalent to 2. So I will be equivalent to 2. So while 2 is less than 5, yes, satisfied condition, and so on and so forth. Until it reaches while 5 is less than 5, no, no longer satisfy the condition. So the loop will end. Okay, let's execute this. Again, shift enter. So it will print I is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 only, because if we reach 5, is 5 less than 5, it's not true anymore. That's why we only display 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so another useful function when we're doing looping in Python is the range function. Okay, so for example, I define a range. It's a very useful function. It is a generator of numerical values. So for example, I declared range 5. Okay, so it basically means that I'm defining number ranges from 0 to 5. So to confirm that, so let us use this in for loop. So instead of doing sequence just like before, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what if I want you to create 50 of this? So 6 to 50. So will you type it from 1 to 50? What if I want up to 1000? Can you type from 1 to 1000? So this is not a smart way to do this. So we use the range. So for demonstration, so 4, I in range. So we define, instead of a sequence, we define a range. So for example, I will define a range from 0 to 10. Just for example, then we will look through the numbers. Okay. So let's say a print I. So let's look at the result. Okay. So it will print from 0 to 9. So don't be confused with this one. It's still 10. From 0 to 9, that's 10 items. Okay? So again, indexing starts at 0 here. We define this one. But if you want to start with 1, okay? So shift, enter again. Now it will be 9 items only. So it does not mean that it will end with a numerical of 10. It means that start from 1, then take uh, the limit will be here is 10, but it's not included. That's why it's only 9 items for the printout. So this is a very useful function if we want to create a list that is composed of ranges. So for example, we want to define a quick list of, let's say, 0 to 50. Okay, let's define a sample list is equivalent to uh, range of 0 to 50. So we will be creating a list from the range function. So for example, list. So since we will use the list function, okay. So list of range from 0 to 50. So let's execute this one. So if you look at the value of the sample list, so we created a list from 0 to 50 instead of doing this one, instead of typing. It's very useful if you use range. This is a very common in Python in terms of when you are programming with data science. So you will use a list range combination. Okay, so I think we have overkilled this example. So let's just reduce the range. Okay, so for example, my list, sample list is again, the list is a function. Okay, so this are list range. This just means I will create a range from 0 to 20. Then I will create a list out of that range. So again, shift enter. So again, there's a list of 0 to 20. Okay, so again, execute this one. So from 0 to 19, but it is 20 item. Don't be confused about the ending. This not, for beginners, they are expecting a number 20 at the last one. But again, we are saying here, start from 0, then it must have a 20 items. So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on and so forth, these are 20 items inside the list. So that is it for looping. So for our next topic, we will be discussing some other useful functions in Python. And again, we will be reinforcing all the topics that I have discussed before we start in programming for data science. I know this is not a lot for now, but I think the better foundation is this sets of topics, because foundations in programming for data science is very important. So I know these are just the basic, but it is very important when we go forward in our topic. So again, thank you for listening and see you at the next topic.